Hi there, it's Jason Snedden, the Abundance Activator. I got a bit tongue-tied there with my own title. And I'm here with Adam Wiltshire, who is a White Tiger Qigong instructor and the founder of the Australian School of the Energetics. Now, I met Adam about a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and we had this beautiful catch up and connection, and we went on a beautiful walk because I wanted to understand what Qigong was and what he was doing, and I'd seen him, around, but I really wanted to get a good understanding of what he was doing, and I thought, wow, I'd love to have Adam come and join me in conversation, because I know I certainly didn't know what Qigong was until I met him, and we've just done some Qigong in the lead up to this conversation, and I know I feel really energized, and I think it's a really it's a really powerful modality, especially at this time, I think. And so big welcome to you, Adam. Welcome, and so I'd love to hear your story, your journey to Qigong, and also what the School of Energetics is all about as well.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Yeah, so lovely to be here with you this afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to join you and for the lovely introduction. So yes, my journey, Qigong, there's a lot I can share and a lot I can speak to you about this. So really my journey with all of this kind of with healing work, with exploring well-being tools, this all started for me quite young. I first started exploring Qigong when I was 13, so very early on in my life, and I started going to a community Tai Chi class, and Tai Chi and Qigong are often taught together, but they do have some differences, some important differences, and I can speak to that as well. But yeah, one thing I'll share on that, I was 13 at the time, and I was the youngest person in the group by about 60 years.
I could imagine.
So yes, and I stuck with it for about a year. After that, I then moved on to karate, and I was training in karate and other martial arts for a while. And I took a bit of a break. I got more into crystal healing and energy work for a while, and I really came back to Qigong when I first moved to Australia. So this was about 7 years ago now. And there's an interesting story as to how I first came across Qigong, because at the time, I was a broke backpacker living out of my car, which was a really large station wagon. And I was living on an inflatable mattress at the time. I just arrived in Sydney, and I'd spent a lot of my money traveling around New Zealand before I came to Australia. And one morning I woke up next to a local park, and as I looked out of my windows, there was a group of people doing Qigong outside the car. And so naturally, I joined the class, and the teacher of that class became my first Tai Chi and Qigong master and trainer as a result of that.
Wow, that was a divine placement, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was meant to be. And yeah, after that, I went on to train with him for about 5 years and did teacher training with that master. I've also trained with the White Tiger Qigong School, which is a little bit different to what I was doing with that first master. The White Tiger Qigong is particularly medical Qigong, so it's got a real focus on Chinese medicine, a real focus on healing, but also transformation through the practice. And really, my journey has been one of transformation with Qigong. At the time, I was actually not in a good place in my life. I was struggling with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder at the time. And this was the less severe kind. So for those who may not know about, and who are listening, who may not know about bipolar, there's the more severe type when you can experience manic depression, and you can have real highs and real lows. But for me, mine was more hypomania. So feeling a lot of the lows, and not as extreme. It wasn't, I wouldn't have the real highs. It would just be a little bit of a euphoric experience if I was in that But, you know, in the Qigong at the time, I was on medication. I was on quite heavy medication at the time, as many people with bipolar are. And I was looking for alternatives as to things that can help my health. I was struggling a lot with anxiety. I was struggling a lot with, just feeling a lot of overwhelm in my life, really, and lots of strong emotions. And when I started doing Qigong, I felt some relief. When I started doing the practice, I started to feel relief, and I started to see the benefits that having a daily practice of Qigong could create for me in my life. And I've, it's quite a long story, but I've been practicing now for 7 years on a regular basis. And after 5 years of consistent practice, and in line with also doing some therapy and some other tools, some other things to support myself, I was able to fully come off medication. And it was quite heavy medication I was on at the time as well. Some very heavy medications, which were quite debilitating and made me feel a bit like a zombie most of the time. Kind of nulled any emotion at all, which I don't actually think is very healthy. And as a result, using this Qigong, this was my daily support, you know. Instead of having that medication, the Qigong in itself, being medical Qigong, became a real support for me in my journey and in keeping my mind clear and healthy, and keeping my emotions in check, regulating my emotions. And really that inspired me to want to share the practice with other people. I was like, well, if I can overcome all of this through this practice and transform myself in the way that I have, you know, I want to be able to put this out there to the world and really start to share it with others so they can feel perhaps similar benefits. Perhaps there's other people struggling with anxiety out there, with other mental health conditions, who perhaps were in a similar place to me, like, you know, feeling that there wasn't another way. Perhaps, I mean, for me, I was actually told by all of my psychiatrists that, you know, there wasn't another way, and that this was the only way for me, was being on medication. And doing the Qigong, that was never put to me as an option, and I had to go and self-search, if you like, for that outside of myself. And when I found that, it was just this amazing sense of relief, and it gave me so much more well-being. It gave me more self-confidence, and it's led to some real and lasting changes in my life. And I no longer have those mood swings that I used to have. I no longer haven't felt depressed in years. I haven't been unwell in years as a result of this. And I haven't actually had any physical illnesses. I haven't had any flus. I haven't had anything like that for a long time. And that's because also Qigong really supports immune system health, which is especially important at the moment with everything that's been going on. So, yeah, it's been quite a...
Is Qigong, you know, it's movement, but is it breathing as well? And is it meditation, or is it the breathing and the movement that creates the meditation? How does it actually work?
Yes, so there's a few different parts of the practice. So there's Qigong is taught as part of the Chinese medicinal approach to health. So are you familiar with acupuncture?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So alongside acupuncture, they have Chinese herbs, they have moxibustion, and they also have Chinese medical massage. And if you were to see a Chinese doctor, one of the other prescriptions that can be given is medical Qigong. And there's many types of medical Qigong. In fact, there's over 3,000 types that are currently on record with the Chinese government. And there's thought to be many more. And yeah, as you mentioned at the start, the style I'm teaching is the White Tiger Qigong, which is in a very ancient form of medical Qigong. And it has its origins in China, in Wudang province, Wudang Shan. You have to forgive my Chinese. I don't speak Chinese or Cantonese, but I do have a lot of knowledge about Qigong and about energy healing in particular. So yeah, when I was using Qigong, this other part of Chinese medicine was the core of what was happening for me and what was supporting me on my journey. Now, in answer to your question, there are a few different components. We have the breath. We have a lot of breath work within Qigong, but it's essentially, you can describe it as a movement meditation. So it involves a series of healing movements combined with different breathing techniques, which help to balance the body, to balance the mind, balance the emotions, and to stimulate the body's natural ability to heal itself and its natural healing abilities. For people who are more scientifically minded, I usually describe it as restoring the body to homeostasis, so creating that sense of harmony in the body. And so really, when you're practicing Qigong during a session, you start up similar to a yoga class, perhaps. You would have some warm-up movements, but then you move into actual forms, so medicinal Qigong forms that you learn. So similar to how in Tai Chi, if you've ever seen people in the park kind of waving their hands in different routines, we have lots of different hand movements within Qigong. We were doing a couple just before the call together. And so lots of different routines. Now, each of these different routines, how this is different to martial arts, is each of the routines is working on different organ groups in the body and working on different meridian lines in different locations of the body. How that's different to Tai Chi, for instance, is Tai Chi doesn't have such a strong focus on this medicinal part that, as it is in Qigong. There is some focus on healing within Tai Chi, absolutely. But in Qigong, we really get deep into certain particular organ groups, and each of the movements is designed to work on different organs and different meridians. So, essentially, the organs and the meridians are very much connected in Chinese medicinal philosophy. We have and essentially you could describe a meridian as like a river which runs to the lakes, and the lakes are your organs. So that's kind of how the two are connected, a bit like veins running through the body energetically. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, in yoga, certainly yin yoga, we do different poses and hold in different poses for different times of the year and different moon cycles. Is it the same? Do you have the same sort of things happen?
We do, absolutely. So one of the main styles of Qigong I teach is 5 elements Qigong. And this is very much, you would connect with different elements at different times of the year during different seasons. So at the moment, with a lot of my classes, I'm focusing on the lungs. As we're going into the winter, our lung function can decrease, which is why people get a lot of colds and flus, particularly around at this type of year. And by doing Qigong practice, how it benefits the lungs is it's creating, when you're doing the breath work into the lungs and through the Qigong, it creates this expansion in the lungs and a contraction in the lungs. And essentially what this does is it creates a detoxifying effect in the fascia around the lungs, fascia being a bit like the glue, keeping them in place.
Well, they talk of that in yoga as well, so interesting. Yeah. Right,
okay, so yeah, there's definitely some similarities there. One of the differences would be that we never lay down for any pose.
Okay.
So it's all standing.
Yeah, okay, right. Well, and so tell me about the School of Energetics. Tell me what's that involve, and what do you teach?
Yeah, no, thank you. So for me, for every Qigong teacher, most of them will have a specialty. So some people may focus on more physical rehabilitation of perhaps post-surgery recovery. Qigong, I'm actually currently in conversations with a hospital in Sydney to start offering it in a hospital for cancer patients.
Wow.
So it is now being used more holistically in in mainstream healthcare. But, for me, my particular specialty is working with people who are highly sensitive, people who are empaths, and people who are light leaders. So this has all been a big part of my journey in actually understanding that for myself, just to revisit what I was saying earlier about my journey about bipolar disorder. I've actually come to see that really a lot of the things that I was experiencing, which may have led to that diagnosis, were also traits of being a highly sensitive person. Is a biological trait which affects 1 in 5 people. And what that trait basically means is that you feel things a lot more deeply, you feel emotions more deeply, you can be easily unsettled by loud noises, by really strong smells and sensory information. You can also frequently become overwhelmed in daily life. You can also have a sense of sometimes feeling other people's energy, other people's emotions, and that practicing new. And really, from a scientific perspective, because it's important to mention that the high sensitivity trait has actually had medical research done into it by clinical psychologists and research psychologists.
Wow.
So this isn't too woo-woo.
No. You're in conversation with me, so we're allowed to be woo-woo.
And there's definitely parts of me which are woo-woo as well. So, in full ownership of that. But the high sensitivity trait, what is interesting is a lot of people do end up going down spiritual paths who are highly sensitive, because they're often looking for this deeper meaning to life. They feel things very deeply.
Yeah.
What the research has found, interestingly, is that they actually feel things 5 times more deeply than other people do. And that it's to do with your nervous system. They have a highly permeable nervous system, which means that they absorb things and process things more deeply. Yeah. So I work with a lot of people who have some of these traits. People who are empaths often have these similar traits, and very often being affected by the energy of a room, by the energy of other people. And really through my own practices, my own lived experience of overcoming bipolar, and as well as having done extensive training as well and understanding how energy works. I'm also a Reiki teacher, a Usui Reiki teacher, so it's another modality I'm teaching alongside this. It's really helped me understand, how it really affects these people, being a highly sensitive person and an empath myself. And I also see them being people that can often be diagnosed with anxiety and often get diagnosed with mental illnesses, and perhaps not actually have as much attention given to their trait, and perhaps not having that self-understanding, which I know for me was something that was so important, is actually finding understanding of what's going on and what's really happening internally, what's happening biologically, what's happening emotionally. Because it's one thing to just give someone a big label, like say bipolar for me, which was actually a really heavy label to carry, because there's a lot of stigma about bipolar, and some people would just look at me and say, like, can I be around you right now? And I had to work through that. And, it's like, now I don't really, because I'm not really affected as much as I used to be when I was younger. Like, of course, I still feel emotions like everyone else does, but I don't have the mood swings, I don't have depression, I don't have euphoria anymore. So all of those main traits, that they're not present for me, that's not my reality anymore. But for other people who are highly sensitive, they may feel enhanced anxiety. And one of the things that really helps is doing these practices like Qigong, like the Reiki that I teach. And I also offer coaching to these people. So alongside what else they're doing, to help them, I also offer really particular coaching to help them overcome the challenges that they face on a daily basis because of their biology, but also how to work energetically with what's happening, and to how to navigate the world really with more confidence and feeling more in ownership. And we talked a little bit about at the beginning about our gifts, and I think that's really important, as well as opening up our gifts as sensitive people, as being empaths. And I work with a lot of men as well who often had been shamed around their sensitivity. I know that myself, I was often shamed for that by other people when I was younger, and for other men in our culture. What the research again has found is that it affects men and women equally, this high sensitivity. So there'll be plenty of men out there who are experiencing this themselves, and because of some false notions of what masculinity is that are going around our culture, they may not actually have that inquiry or awareness of what's actually beneath the surface.
Yeah, I know for me, I didn't, my sensitivities didn't come until I allowed myself to go through an awakening process. I was very numbed out to what was going on. But now I know, now I'm very sensitive, and I pick up the collective energy. And sometimes I forget that, I forget that actually it's not mine. I have to tune in. Oh, this is actually collective energy, because it's, it's only been over the last 5-6 years that I've been picking things, being aware of what I'm picking up. So, so it's something for me that's evolved. But what I also want to speak to is that at this time there is this, significant collective fear going on and anxiety going on, and so, it sounds to me Qigong could be a really useful tool to tap into to help navigate these times. And then if you've, and for those that have got extreme cases, you know, an opportunity to work with you. So I know you're adjusted with the times, and you have an online, you're running online classes. Is that right?
Yes, no, that's right. And yeah, I completely agree that Qigong can be really helpful as a support at the moment, you know, especially when we're talking about health and the immune system. It's so beneficial for that with the organs. And I am running and offering online sessions at the moment. So I've launched a Facebook group called Qigong Club. And in the Qigong Club, we discuss all things Qi. And you have the opportunity to have a session every day with me personally, and that session is delivered live to a group. We've currently got people coming in internationally, coming into that class. It's completely designed for beginners, so people with no experience can come along. They can try it out. They can see how they feel after the class, before the class, and see if there's been a difference for them. And it's through the practice that you can feel the change. And often when you walk away, you can feel better than when you started. You can feel a sense of more energy in the body, and feel more clear in the mind. And because of all the worry and the fear that you were speaking to, Jason, that can be so helpful at the moment. It's just to, you know, have more clarity in yourself, and just to start your day in a wholesome way, really, and in a fun way, connecting with people like as we're doing now. We don't have to not have any connection with anyone outside. We can still connect in other mediums as we are through this call. So yeah, and everyone is welcome to come into this group, regardless of your experience, or regardless if you're an empath or a sensitive person. Anybody can come. I'm opening it up for this because I really just want to offer my gifts at this time to help people. And yeah, I think it's so important at this time as well.
Wonderful. And is it run at a specific time of the day, or do you mix it up?
Yeah, so the group classes are being run at 7:30 in the morning, 7:30 a.m. and they're 45 minutes. Yeah.
Sydney time.
Yeah. Yeah. Sydney time. Yeah. Australian Eastern Standard Time, I believe. And yeah, so that's Sydney time. But we have people coming in from the UK. We've got people all over the world. And the good thing about having it early in the morning is to access it. It makes it more open and accessible to people. And also there's talk of having an evening class going for those who perhaps aren't morning people. So yeah, that's also a possibility. And I work to people one-to-one, so I'm still seeing people via Zoom for one-to-one work at the moment. So if people are wanting some more attention to talk about what's been going on, we can drop into that.
Beautiful. Well, I'll post all your details on in the posts, and yeah, and I'm going to join your class. I think I can join tomorrow morning. Oh no, I can't tomorrow, but definitely Friday morning. I'll join live, and I'm looking forward to it. So, so Adam, thank you so much for joining me in conversation. This has been fabulous. I've got a greater insight, and I just think what you're offering is a great gift to community, and you know, and also you're doing what gives you joy. You know, that's abundant. When we were just in the preparation to this, I just saw you go into absolute joy and leading me in that. That was so, even the giggles that were coming through, I thought, oh, he's so in his bliss. He's so doing what he loves. So I just love that. So thank you so much for joining me today, and keep shining your light.
Oh, thank you, Jason. And yeah, it's so great to be on the call, and thank you for all the work you're doing as well in the world at the moment, and for bringing leaders together through this platform and having these conversations. I think it's a really wonderful initiative. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right, see you, everybody.